So the NCAA has laid down some pretty heavy penalties on Florida State University for violating recruiting rules with the NIL Collective. Worlds are colliding. I told you so. We'll talk about it more on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So Florida State University has violated recruiting rules by an assistant coach dealing with a booster from the NIL Collective. Now, what does that mean? Well, a NIL Collective, for those who haven't seen previous episodes yet, go back and watch them. I explain a NIL Collective in pretty big detail, especially in the previous episode. But a NIL Collective, in the short term, is basically boosters, donors, friends of the program, businesses who get together, pool their money, and then they use that money to donate to an athlete or give to an athlete as their name, image, and likeness payment. So they giving the kid basically money to play in college. It is pay for play. It's basically cheating. What was illegal for boosters to do has now become legal. Kind of. If you ever watched the movie Blue Chips, starring Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Nick Nolte, very good movie. Came out in the 90s. Not a bad little film. And in that, it discusses the whole cheating aspect. You have players who are asking for specific things. A bag of cash, a new tractor for my father, a job for my mom, and a new house.
And if Butch chooses to become a Dolphin, I plan on moving to a new and better job. I have references.
Well, there are rules, you know.
I would also like a house with a lawn. My children have never had a lawn.
I figure a white blue chip athlete like myself deserves something extra. So, this is what I'm looking for. Is about 30 grand. Like to have it in cash. And just toss in one of those gym bags you got.
Whether it's bending the rules or not, don't bother me none, because they ain't my rules. So what you're saying is somebody's going to give you a tractor? That's what I'm saying.
Things that athletes would ask for and that programs, the ethical programs, would not give them, but other programs who wanted to win would give them. That's basically what name, image, and likeness is, but they're disguising it now as you are going to be sponsoring a business. You're going to be representing Crystal, it's a fast food organization down in, or a convenience store organization down in the South, Alabama, Florida, Georgia area. They have a lot of NIL payments out to athletes. I'll go through, I have a whole nother episode where I'm going to break down like what kind of money these athletes are getting and what kind of NIL deals they're receiving and from what businesses. Because it can be very easily used, as I was saying before, for cheating.
Now what am I doing, gentlemen? Dig deep in your pockets. Dig deep.
Well, now it basically is. It's pay for play. They're paying the kids to come to their school. So from the NCAA report, here's where it goes. A Florida State assistant football coach violated NCAA rules when he facilitated an impermissible recruiting contact between a transfer prospect and a booster, according to an agreement released by the Division I Committee on Infractions. During that contact, the booster encouraged the prospect to enroll at Florida State and offered a name, image, and likeness deal as a recruiting inducement. Translation, paying you to come to the school. Leave the portal, come to Florida State, and we'll pay you. The assistant coach then violated ethical conduct rules when he provided false or misleading information about his involvement in the arranged meeting. Now, here's the deal. NIL is going to break the rules because they're being kind of allowed to do it. Again, states have ruled on NIL. You are now allowed to do that. NCAA has no legislation against it because it was done beyond their control. It was done as a piece of legal work. Okay, as legislation. So that's kind of beyond their control. And they don't really have a person who can legislate in the NCAA. Now they do, but they didn't then. So all they came out with were guidelines. NCAA said, here's some guidelines on how to handle it, but there's no real rules. They can't evaluate the contract that the kid does. I mean, that contract, if you sign a NIL contract, the contract could simply say, if you get hurt, you're done. We're taking all your money away. They could do that. It could say whatever. It has all these different violations or different terms could be in that contract, which could terminate the agreement altogether and hurt the kid. But the NCAA has no bearings on that. They have no jurisdiction over the agreement because it's done independently. So that's where NIL is separate. That's why you have NIL collectives that are not part of the program, but kind of part of the program, but not officially part of the program. It's that real gray area that they're walking, okay? So here's your NIL collective, here's your coaching staff, and there's the gray area in the middle, okay? Well, as long as the worlds don't collide, you're fine for the most part. But in this case, the worlds collided because the assistant coach, he assisted getting the athlete to the meeting for the NIL collective or with the NIL collective so the NIL collective could offer the athlete money.
Well, that was really a stupid thing. You know what's going to happen now?
Worlds collide.
Well, yeah.
Because this world is your sanctuary, and if that world comes in contact
Yes, it blows up.
Let's read this on. During the meeting, the booster encouraged the prospect to enroll at Florida State and offered him a NIL opportunity, ready for this, with the collective worth approximately $15,000 per month during his first year at the school. $15,000 a month. So if you're looking at $15,000 a month, if you're going for a first year, if it's a full calendar year, you're looking at about $180,000. If it's a school year, like 8 months, maybe $120,000. Either way, that's a lot of money. And they're saying, I'm going to give you either 120 or 180 grand. Either way, $15,000 a month for you to come to my school. That's what they're saying. Okay. After the meeting, the booster contacted the prospect and the prospect's mother via text message and or phone call. Shortly thereafter, the prospect withdrew his name from the transfer portal and remained at his previous school. Now, to illustrate, so he didn't go to Florida State, stayed at his previous school. Now, when you enter, reminder, if you enter the transfer portal, you give up your scholarship. You do. You resign your scholarship as per the NCAA rules. You have to resign your scholarship if you have a scholarship, you have to resign it. And if you do resign your scholarship, your school may not have to honor your scholarship to bring you back. Just so you know, that's the risk on the transfer portal. But I don't know what the situation with this athlete was, whether they had a scholarship or not, but he returned back to his previous school. The prospect did not enter into an agreement with the booster or receive any related compensation. So the athlete never took any money. So the booster contacted the athlete and the athlete's parent, said, hey, we want you to be part of Florida State, and we're going to give you $15,000 a month. Now, the problem is that the coach from Florida State, the assistant coach, basically drove the kid to the meeting with the booster, so they had the meeting, okay? And that's the problem, because now you've collided the worlds.
Worlds are colliding. George is getting upset.
If the coaches were over here doing their thing and the booster club, the NIL collective, is over here doing its thing, that's fine. But the minute those two merge, now you've come under the radar of the NCAA and they're going, oh, so now you're violating the rules. Let's continue to read. The school and enforcement staff agreed that the meeting with the booster violated several recruiting rules. Specifically, the meeting constituted an impermissible recruiting contact because boosters are not authorized recruiters and generally cannot have in-person, off-campus contact with prospects. But they're doing it anyway. So they say they're not recruiting, but they kind of are recruiting. There's a way of doing it. That's what I told you before. It's going to be co-opted or corrupted into cheating. The minute, I've been saying this for months once I heard about NIL and started digging into it. The minute you allow a kid to take money for name, image, and likeness, he's going to take it from somebody. And what's to stop that organization or business from saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we can have you come to our school if you take this deal. Here's an example I gave. I was talking to NCAA Legal, and you had a player who was being recruited by, a basketball player being recruited by Louisville and by Kentucky, and by University of Kentucky. Okay, University of Louisville, University of Kentucky. He's being recruited by both. Well, Louisville, I believe their sponsor is Adidas, but Kentucky is Nike. So if Nike is offering an athlete a name, image, and likeness deal, it may not have to be said, but it can be implied where, we'd love to offer you this deal, but it's not going to look good if you're at the University of Louisville. But if you're at Kentucky, then that's okay because, we're already there and we're a sponsor. Are they saying that? I don't know. Could they? It could be implied. It could be said straight out. I'm not sure, but that's one of the problems with name, image, and likeness. And NCAA legal, really, they had nothing. They said, well, we can't really do much about that unless something like that is being done and we know about it, in which case they're facilitating contact, in which case then it's a violation. But it can be done in other ways. That subtextual, hey, you know what? Nike's a big fan of University of Kentucky and we're part of the program. So it would be really cool if you were on with us because we're all part of the same Nike family. There's ways around it. I'm not saying Nike did it. I'm just saying it could potentially be done with them or any other business. That's the problem. Or what if you have a CEO or board members of another company, like, say, Crystal, for example. They're big. They're headquartered in Georgia. Well, you're looking at the name, image, and likeness payments for a lot of kids in Georgia, and they're all being given nil deals by Crystal. And you got to wonder, well, is Crystal giving them nil deals? Like, what if you had, I'm not saying they're doing this, I'm just saying what if. What if you have a bunch of people who graduated from University of Georgia, and then they're going to, and they're working for Crystal, and they're on the board or the CEO or whoever it is, and then they decide to say, we're going to give a nil deals to these kids because we want them to come to Georgia, and they're from Georgia, so we can sweeten the pot, make it look good for them, and then they would come to Georgia because by coming to Georgia, they get a big deal. Could it be done? Yes. Is it done? I'm not saying they're doing it. I'm saying it could be done because here's the example right here. This is what I was concerned about. This booster from this NIL Collective offered this kid $15,000 a month to play for Florida State. Now you've broken the rules. Now you facilitated contact. But the reason they were able to find out about it is because the assistant coach got involved. That's the big reason. Now, the people online are funny because the people online, I love when people online opine but don't have the information. So they'll say, well, it's just a car ride. You just gave him a car ride. Or with like Jim Harbaugh with Michigan State, he just bought him a hamburger. It's a lot bigger than that. It's not as simple as he just gave him a car ride. It's specified it in the violations. He lied about what he did. He misrepresented. First off, he's not allowed to do it anyway, car ride or not. Whether it is, it's still a violation. And then he, by giving the car ride, facilitated the contact with the NIL Collective. Let me give you an example. A little more extreme, but I'll give you an example. You're driving your car. Someone says, could you give me a ride to the bank? You give them a ride to the bank. And then you go in, your friend goes in and robs the bank, comes out, and then you drive away. Are you guilty? Yes, you are. You are an accessory to the crime because you provided transportation for your friend to go rob the bank or anybody to go rob the bank, whether you knew about it or not. Now, if you didn't know about it, then, you might be able to, your lawyer might be able to work your way out of it. But when you're an assistant coach at a school and you know exactly what's happening with this athlete, you're violating the law. So, well, this is different. I want to get this online. This is different. It's not robbing a bank. Basically, you are, though. You're stealing. You're breaking the law. Okay? You're stealing from other opportunities from other schools. You're trying to co-opt the system. It's basically breaking the law. Breaking the law is breaking the law, folks. I mean, if we want to have anarchy, go crazy and let them go nuts. It's already bad enough between transfer portal and everyone jumping into the transfer portal, and then NIL collectives and all this money they're throwing at these athletes to convince them to come to these schools or to make it more lucrative for them to come to schools. Yeah, it's out of control. The law is already being broken. But the fact of the matter is you have to preserve the regulations. And a coach should not be driving a kid to a meeting with the NIL Collective. That's the worlds colliding. Like George Costanza,
Worlds are colliding!
You know what happens then?
So, what happened? All right, let's dig further into this based on this report. The school and enforcement staff agreed that the meeting with the booster violated several recruiting rules. Specifically, the meeting constituted an impermissible recruiting contact because boosters are not authorized. We read this already. Okay, next paragraph. The school enforcement staff and assistant coach also agreed that during the enforcement staff's investigation, the assistant coach violated unethical conduct rules. Here we go, more than a car ride. When he knowingly provided false or misleading information about his knowledge of and involvement in the violations. There you go. He lied about it. Right? Made it worse. Comparing that to like Jim Harbaugh's situation over at Michigan, there were. Let me pull up that real quick. Little deviation. Here it is. The Michigan infractions case. This is, again, Michigan. We'll explain it. Michigan. The Michigan infractions case is related to impermissible on and off-campus recruiting during the COVID-19 dead period and impermissible coaching activities. Not a cheeseburger, says Derek Crawford, the vice president, NCAA hearing operations, referring to the simplistic characterization of the violations in some media reports. Again, not a cheeseburger. It is not uncommon, quote, it is not uncommon for the Committee on Infractions to seek clarification on key facts prior to accepting. The COI, Committee on Infractions, may also reject a negotiated resolution, an NR, if it determines that the agreement is not in the best interest of the association or the penalties are not reasonable. If the involved parties cannot resolve a case through the negotiated resolution process, it may proceed to a hearing, but the committee believes cooperation is the best avenue to quickly resolve the issues. So basically, Harbaugh, they had communications during the COVID-19 dead period, and they weren't allowed to have on and off-campus recruiting at all during that period. They broke the rules. They also had a coach who was an off-field coach who was doing on-field coaching, and he wasn't allowed to do that either. So it wasn't just a cheeseburger. So you can boil it down to simplistic stuff, but it's not simplistic stuff. It's a lot more involved. This was not just a car ride. So let's continue. The case was processed through the negotiated resolution process. The process was used instead of a formal hearing or summary disposition because university, enforcement staff, and assistant coach agreed on the violation and the penalties. Now, in the case of, when the case of Harbaugh, when they noticed that he had violated the rules, the college said, we're going to suspend him for 3 games on our end. We're going to punish. It's like a parent punishing the kid so the school doesn't have to. That's basically what it is. School finds out you did something wrong. Parent says, look, we've already punished him. He'd been grounded for a month, losing his allowance for 3 months. We got it. We've already punished the kid. Can you be a little more lenient on the kid? Florida State didn't do that. If they would have said, yeah, you know what, he screwed up. He drove the kid. He shouldn't have done it. We're going to penalize him, fine him, do whatever. NCAA then may have said, all right, you know what, at least you're doing due diligence and you're trying to nip this in the bud right now, and that makes our job easier, so we're not going to be as hard on you. But they didn't, and the coach lied about it. So then the hammer comes down, okay? So what is the hammer? Well, here we go. The university enforcement staff and assistant coach used ranges identified by the Division I membership-approved infractions penalty guidelines. What it says membership approved means basically the schools all agreed on this. To agree upon level 2 standard penalties for the university and level 2 aggravated penalties for the assistant coach. The decision contains the full list of penalties as approved by the Committee on Infractions, including, here we go, 2 years of probation, a 2-year show cause order for the assistant coach, including a suspension from the next 3 regular season games, a 2-week restriction on recruiting communication, and required attendance at an NCAA regional rules seminar attendance. A restriction from off-campus recruiting during fall 2023 for the assistant coach. A 3-year disassociation from the booster. A 1-year disassociation from the collective. That's the start of it. So the coach can't recruit, can't do off-campus recruiting, and as you see over there, a 3-game suspension, which is what Michigan did with Harbaugh to try to, again, nip it in the bud. All right. So now this guy has a 3-game regular season suspension, which they could have probably done if the guy didn't lie. Next, a $5,000 fine plus 1% of the football budget. And this is a heavy bunch of penalties. A 5% reduction in football scholarships over the two-year probationary period, amounting to a total reduction of 5 scholarships. So you're looking at, I mean, think about this. You have 8 to 12 scholarships as a team, on the average, 8 to 12, right, for a football team. You're losing 5 over 2 years, but you're losing 5 scholarships. That adds up, but there's more. A reduction in official paid visits in the football program in the 2023-24 academic year by 7. So they cannot do official visits by 7. They have to reduce it by 7. The school also will not roll over 6 unused official visits from the 2022-23 academic year. So in total, it's going to lose 13 official visits. That's a lot. That's a lot to sweeten the pot. It's very hard for FSU to cover themselves now, and that's not good. A reduction in football recruiting communications for a total of 6 weeks during the 23-24 and 24-25 academic years. That's 6 fewer weeks of them talking to athletes. So they're behind the curve now. So not only do they lose 13 official visits, not only do they lose, 6 recruiting slots over 2 years, but now they're behind by 6 more weeks on recruiting for everybody else. So everyone else gets a jump on them. Okay, and the last one here, a reduction in the number of in-person recruiting days during the 2023-24 academic year by 6 evaluation days during the fall of 2023 and 18 during the spring of 2024. Damn. They got slammed. Now that's where the NCAA, that's the only ammunition the NCAA has. I'm not going to side with either or. I'm just saying you're going to break the rules, you're going to pay the penalty. And the NCAA has no other recourse in a violation like this. I mean, no collectives, name, image, and likeness, and transfer portal, the transfer portal is legal. It is what it is. But the legislation that caused it to be the feeding frenzy it has been this year, that's out of their control. So they said, well, you have no choice. We have to let it happen because now there's legislation involved and legal actions involved and an injunction, and it's a real pain in the butt. So we had to open it up. But the name, image, and likeness, that's out of their control because it's separate. It was legislated on by the states. Again, about 31 of the 50 states allow for NIL deals. Okay, and then NIL collectives are popping up all over the place. So they can't control that. But when the worlds collide, then they have to do that. They have to actually enforce the law. And that puts it in there under their microscope. If he didn't do it, if the coach didn't do anything about it, it's a good bet the NCAA wouldn't have found out about it and it probably would have been okay. But the minute the coach got involved, again, you stepped into that zone, you crossed that line. Now you have a big problem.
It's just common sense. Anybody knows you got to keep your worlds apart.
And the NCAA is putting a hammer down. And people online are all bent out of shape. Oh, you don't understand. That's terrible in FSU. It was just a car ride. But I'd said it before, it's not just a car ride. There's a lot more involved in this. And honestly, I don't blame the NCAA for clamping down on this. Because if you make it a very harsh penalty like this, a series of harsh penalties like this, that hurts the team going forward, then that's the only way that other teams will learn their lesson. It's like, damn, they did that to Florida State. Maybe I'll think twice about trying to do that. Guys, stay away from the NIL Collective guys. Stay away from them. They're not all going to. They're going to keep breaking the rules. It happens. But you got to hope. And that's the only way the NCAA is going to at least keep some kind of integrity in college sports. Because right now, it's just Pandora's box has been opened. It's a loose cannon. It's crazy. And as I told you before, the NIL Collective is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And it's a very legal way of cheating, unfortunately. But that's how it's being used. So I hope this taught you something and you learned a lot more. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the ProZone. Hey guys, thank you for watching the ProZone. Make sure you check back for more episodes. And if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we have coming up next.